Hello, guys. Welcome to our immune boosting webinar. We had a bit of a glitch when we first recorded this. The first 10 minutes, unfortunately, didn't become part of the recording. So thank you, Melanie, for redoing this first 10 minutes because there's some really crucial points to start with. So who is Melanie? Well, she's an integrative nutritionist. She grew up obsessed with nutrition. She's been obsessed with nutrition her whole life. And she actually grew up on a dairy farm, and her parents were one of the first people who were involved with doing raw milk in New Zealand as well. 7 years ago, she got involved with Ben Warren and his program Be Pure, which most of you will have heard of. She's got a Bachelor in Health Science. She's a certified health coach. She's a Fit Genes practitioner. She's super experienced and super knowledgeable. So get ready for a whole lot of information tonight. And excitedly, she's now based in Wellington, and she collaborates with Chiropractic Balance because our two different angles on improving people's health really complement each other. So I've asked her tonight to speak about immune boosting nutrition. Now, this is her speaking to a whole group of people, so we're keeping it very broad with the discussion. These things should be applicable to 99.9% of people. But I will let Melanie take over. Melanie, welcome.
Thank you. Cool. So we are just redoing this bit at the start, but I'll just kind of keep it the same. So when asked to do the seminar on immune boosting and thinking about what would be the most impactful information to share with people, I decided that more often than not, doing the basics and actually having a plan to do the basics gives us the best advantage for having our best immune system. So of course, there's lots of things that you can do for your immune system. There's lots of supplements or cleansers or superfoods that you can eat. But building a robust immune system takes doing a lot of the basics consistently. So I think it's paramount in this COVID climate to take a moment to think about the ways that we can support our immunity that is gentle and kind on ourselves, that encourages us each day to keep up with the good practices that allow us to create better habits for supporting ourselves when time gets hard. So lockdown was a really good example for us where this was a time where it was really easy to start having things like sugar, refined carbohydrate, rich fats, maybe alcohol, all started kind of creeping into daily practices where we had nowhere to go because it made us feel good. But it all has an impact on the immune system and how that responds then when we get hit with a viral load or a bacterial load, it becomes a lot harder to recover. And so especially this time of year as well, when we have kind of high pollen, for those that have hay fever, you're already starting to get an immune load on your body. So when we're having these constant foods like sugar and refined carbohydrates and alcohol in our diet, we start seeing our immune system lower. So we're here to talk about how we can boost our immune system, and that always kind of is in synergy to optimal nutrition. To both develop and maintain our immunity. So what is optimal nutrition? Because the problem that we have is that nutrition is not going to be the same for everyone. Everyone has a different experience, and it's what we call bioindividuality. So everyone is going to have a different requirement, whether that be age, stress levels, environment, activity levels, or work. And so when thinking about optimal nutrition, it's easy to say, hey, well, I can just supplement for that. Okay, I can't do everything, I'll supplement for that. Maybe I'll do a cleanse once a year, and that will be enough. But the honest truth, that's not enough. And actually doing some basic, consistent nutritional habits every day is going to outweigh a lot of that. And it's not saying that supplementation is bad or doing detoxes is bad, but it's saying the place for them in nutrition is to supercharge you. So first off, I want to kind of cover something that you've all heard about, you know about, and you know to do, but I hope that this becomes a motivation for you to do it. And that is to drink more water. So everyone needs to be drinking at a bare minimum 3 liters of water. The human body is made up of more water than any other element. Okay, we're 70% water. Our brain and our heart is composed of 73% water. Our lungs are actually composed of 83% water. And that's really important to talk about, because when we think of COVID, it's a virus that attacks our lungs. So when we think about hydration, we're not just thinking about kind of hydration for the body, we're also thinking that water is needed to hydrate our mucous membranes, and they line our lungs, our nose, our throat, our GI tract, and they actually act as a protective barrier for the body. So by keeping our hydration up and keeping hydrated, we're actually creating that first line of defense for our immune system. You know, we're activating that barrier to protect us. So when that barrier gets dry, it becomes less effective. So the other thing water is really great for is our lymphatic system. So our lymphatic system contains specialized white blood cells. Now these are called lymphocytes that help us fight infection. And so these lymphocytes help to remove waste, not the lymphocytes, they do help us fight infection, so therefore remove viral and bacterial loads. But the lymph system helps us to remove waste products and toxins from the body. And so the lymph system is made up of 96% water. So when you think about how much water you're drinking in the day, you know, take into account, you know, are you also drinking tea? Are you drinking coffee? Are you drinking herbal teas? Because all of that does not count towards your water intake. Okay, so at a bare minimum, we're looking at 3 liters of water, and then any additional hydration that you're getting from fruit and vegetables, that's a bonus. Okay, so it's really important to keep hydrated, because as we get dehydrated, again, we're dehydrating those mucous membranes. We are making that barrier inefficient. We're also slowing down our natural detoxification through our lymph. And so again, that kind of goes hand in hand with movement, because lymph is a passive system, and it needs movement to be able to move and detox. So another reason for drinking water, and it's probably an obvious one, so maybe you know about this one, is that it helps our digestive system take up nutrients and carry it around the body. So the human body can go 3 weeks without food, but it's not able to go any more than 3 to 4 days without water. So water is really essential for a strong immune system and a healthy body. So if you're not meeting your water goals, then this would be the first thing that you need to start with. And maybe it's as simple as creating yourself a chart, you know, whether you keep that in the kitchen or you keep that in a place that you frequently see, and you just start with, you know, with a glass, and you just tick it off as you go through it. One thing that I find is really useful to try and get my water intake up is I always try and start the morning with a really tall glass of water, and I know then at that time I've had, you know, 500 ml, so I'm already halfway there. And then, you know, a pro tip is to try and drink all that water warm. You know, when you're drinking cold water, the body's having to heat that up before it can use it. So especially if you're someone who's dealing with a sluggish lymph system, maybe you have a lot of sinusitis problems. So for anyone that has hay fever, you want to be drinking a lot of warm water to keep those mucous membranes hydrated and to keep the body cleansing. And so there was a great question last night actually saying, okay, well, if I'm starting with water, is it any type of water? You know, does any type of water count? And so what I say to people is that, you know, if you're first starting, start with water. But if you are in an area where it's heavily chlorinated, you can buy really easily now, you know, bio-based mineral jugs. I see them, you know, a couple of years ago when many years ago, actually, like 7 years ago, when I first was looking at water quality, you know, it was really hard to get good water filters in New Zealand. You know, you had to go to a lot of specialized places, but now you can almost like go into a supermarket and you can see bio-based mineral jug there. So, you know, if that's the first step, you know, just filtering your water and getting the minerals back into it is really important for your hydration, because in nature we would find water in streams, going through sediment, through rock, so picking up a lot of minerals. So that would be one thing. So if your water is really chlorinated, make sure you are getting it filtered. And then one more thing, because I forget how many times I actually have to say this to people, because I take it as a given that people know not to do this. But someone told me only 2 weeks ago that they do this, is don't drink warm water from the tap. Okay, so if you're thinking, hey, Melanie told me to drink warm water, and you're turning your tap on warm and you're getting warm water out of your pipes, don't do that. That's not healthy for you. Just get your cold water and add boiling water from the jug. So that would be my next bit of a tip there. I know that one's everyone's thinking, oh, no, I know that, but it trips me up every time. There's 1 in 10 people still getting warm water from the tap.
Awesome. So if we drink more water, it's going to help our mucous membranes be more effective, which will mean that when anything we breathe in gets into our body, it doesn't have as good a chance of getting further down.
Yes.
And it could also help with sinuses and hay fever. It's going to help us flush everything out better through our lymphatics, and it's going to help us, the nutrients that we take in, they need to be transported to the body. That's like pretty amazing. And some other questions were like sparkling water.
So with sparkling water, if you're someone, because so a lot of people say to me, I don't like to drink water. So I say, like, if sparkling water is the first step to getting you to drink water, start with sparkling water. That's a great first start. And then just start to wean it off, because we don't want all our water as sparkling water.
And can you add lemon or anything like that to your water?
Yep. So one thing that you can add, like especially when we're talking about getting like those nutrients and minerals back, so you can add lemon to your water. You can chop up like slices of cucumber, anything that's going to kind of hydrate the water. I know, hydrating water.
Awesome. Well, that's probably one of the most powerful ones, would you say, to actually boost your immunity?
Yeah.
And a whole host more.
Yeah, it's crazy how when people do start drinking those volumes of water, they say, I instantly feel better.
And what about if people have to go to the toilet a lot?
Them's the breaks. You'll initially pee a lot because your body's not used to it. And like it's good to know that, especially if you're starting to consume more water than you previously would, and maybe you sit in a lot of meetings. But as the body gets acclimatized to those water levels, you'll find you're not actually peeing as much.
And maybe those people should actually be peeing more, like it's normal to pee a lot.
Yeah.
And can you drink too much water? Can you, like, something that I often get asked is like, can I flush all the nutrients out of my body? Or?
No, I think that's a real common misconception with water. I guess because you're seeing when you're peeing, you're like, what am I peeing out? But you really can't drink too much water. Like, I can't quite remember the tolerance of how much water you can have in the day, because I heard the stat in gallons. So I can't think of what the conversion is, but pretty much unless you're having more than 2 gallons of water a day, which I think is like 8 liters, you're not going to be overdoing it.
Yeah. Awesome. And then what would be your next top hitter for boosting your immunity through your nutrition?
So after water, what I really recommend people to focus on, and I know that this one has had a lot of interest for most people, and it's either we're having too much or we're having too little, and that's protein. So protein. We need to have not too much, but not too little, and we need to have it 3 times a day. Protein is critical for supporting our healthy immune system. It helps to build our body's immune cells that fight infection and help with tissue repair. Protein is the building block for the whole body, for all our cells, our immune system included. Now, not only does it have that role, which is very important, but it also has the role of helping us to stabilize our blood sugars. Okay, because high blood sugars, that seesaw, is going to suppress our immune system. So having protein with all our meals, so again, like breakfast is an example where we often don't get enough protein, so we start that hypoglycemic seesaw, so therefore we're starting the day with our immune system suppressed, will mean that we can start having balanced blood levels and therefore a more vigorous immune system when it comes into, things that could infect us.
And so some of the awesome questions we got is, what would be the best sources of protein? So I've got a crazy dog in the background.
No worries. So we talked about, so best sources of protein is going to be things like eggs, fish, and meat. If you don't eat animal-based protein, then you need to work really hard at getting your protein through combining different beans to make sure that you're getting enough protein in your meals. Or, I really encourage people to start thinking, could they have eggs in their diet? As well as, could they have fish? But really it needs to be the size of the palm of your hand. So this size here, so you can see, like for my palm, for example, I could have 2 eggs. And you're having that 3 times a day. It's not a lot when you think, your palm's quite flat, but it's a decent serving 3 times a day. And when you start building your plate in that way and looking at where your protein is, you're going to start getting those consistent blood sugar levels.
Cool. So if we have protein at every meal, it basically means that the sugar from our meal doesn't get absorbed as quickly, and
Yes.
we keep our blood sugars more stable, and that is key for our immunity.
Yes.
Yeah. Awesome.
A concern though, I would say, like start with 2 a day, get more creative with your beans. But in reality, if you are looking to boost your immune system and you didn't have a lot of protein in your diet, I would be happy for those eggs to be multiple times a day, because they're never eaten by themselves. I'm encouraging people that would also be eaten with beans and legumes, as well as vegetables, other foods.
Cool. So the other question they got is, if you do feel like a sugary snack, is it better to eat it with some protein?
Yes.
To decrease the negative impact on your immune system.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I would say to people, nuts are a really good example of, having protein when you're having those cravings, because it doesn't require any preparation and you can have them on hand. If you're a constant snacker though, maybe it's not great.
So with your protein, ideally you should be, if you were having 3 meals a day, you'd have 3 servings of protein. So ideally a serving of protein with every meal.
Yes.
And avoid as much as possible having simple sugars and carbohydrates on their own.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the best way to maybe start with that is, instead of thinking you're cutting things out, is just actually crowd them out, add have the sugary food and the protein, and then eventually over time you might be able to reduce the sugar or crowd it out.
Yeah.
Or have a glass of water.
Yeah. So one thing I do find though is a lot of food cravings actually come from nutrient depletion in the body. So often we get a lot of our food cravings when we're stressed. Maybe we're overworking, we're over exercising, or we just haven't been eating well. So we're not getting a lot of those micronutrients, and the body is biologically wired to survive. And so it's just, we're biologically wired to look for those sugars. So just, as you said, first thing, replace the beverages with water. Look at your plate, fill it up with non-starchy vegetables, aim for color, green peppers, red peppers, red onion, anything that's colorful, and just think nutrition. And often just focusing on that and getting those nutrients in helps to reduce our cravings.
Awesome. Cool. And any other questions about protein or sugars? And Albert, you're welcome. Anyone's also welcome to unmute themselves and ask the question. So, you can see the question.
Are protein bars good for you? It depends. Protein bars are often highly processed. So when you go the route of having, I guess, any packaged foods, you need to start learning how to read the labels, read the ingredients that is in them, understanding what the sugars are in there, and what is actually food in them. If you can't read the ingredients, what's in it? I find a lot of protein bars have a lot of man-made ingredients and not a lot of whole foods.
So if the protein bar was full of whole foods and it's high in protein, it's
I'd
probably...
also just look at like how much sugar it's having per serve. You want to make sure that you're having less than 5 grams per serving. You know, our daily sugar intake should be less than 25 grams a day. Like that's a World Health Organization recommendation. So it's a pretty good one to go from. And then also looking at, you know, what fiber are you getting with it as well?
Can you see that question there? For vegans, is soy good for you? I've heard many controversial things about it. Also, I feel bloated after I have it.
Everyone's really different. And like I mentioned at the start, like bioindividuality or biodiversity, for some people, they can tolerate soy. It's kind of like dairy in a way. Some people can tolerate it, some people can't. If you are vegetarian and you find that you can't tolerate soy, that's fine. It just means that you need to incorporate more beans and legumes into your diet and be really conscious about increasing them. Or you need to look at where you might be flexible, and if you might have, you know, try fish or eggs in the diet.
Would some people who don't tolerate soy do okay with fermented soy?
Yeah, so that's why I always recommend kind of organic fermented soy, because anything that's fermented, again, you've broken down those proteins more, so it can be easier on the digestion. Soy can be quite hard to digest.
Cool. And at the end also, you can ask more questions in the different topics as well.
Yeah, I just wanted to say on soy, like, I think there's a lot of information about soy, and for some people with pro-inflammatory illnesses, soy can be a real trigger for them. If it's not a trigger for you, like I really want to encourage people to learn to eat intuitively and listen to their body. So if they feel like they're thriving on something and it's doing good and they're in the presence of no illnesses, then it's okay. You know, but then it's also being open to, if you do have a problem, you know, readdressing that.
Awesome.
Is fermented soy the same as tempeh? Yes.
And miso is fermented soy too, isn't it?
Yeah, meso's fermented. For meso to be called meso, it needs to be fermented for 12 months. So
Okay.
tamari is another example. It can't be called tamari, so that's like a soy sauce, until it's been fermented for 12 months.
So tamari is actually fermented soy sauce, not just gluten-free.
No, so tamari, for it to be called tamari, those beans are fermented for 12 months. And soy sauce, you know, doesn't need wheat. It's just cheaper to use wheat as a medium.
Yeah, so kind of like champagne. It's like from in a certain way.
Yeah, exactly. The Japanese have miso and tempeh and tamari. France has champagne from the province of Champagne and some really good cheese, which is high in K2.
So we've got water, we've got protein, we've got thinking about your sugars, and what else, Melanie?
I kind of want to touch on it, but I don't want to fixate on it. It's kind of we're coming out of like a lockdown. I feel like it's really important to talk about caffeine and alcohol. So I'll wrap alcohol up pretty quickly. Pretty much alcohol suppresses the immune system. Okay, so if you have any health condition, you would want to reduce your alcohol intake. And standard alcohol intake should be no more than 2 glasses of, you know, something a week.
Does it matter is there any difference in the type of alcohol?
Try not to fixate on that, because to be honest, like most people drink alcohol as a stress reliever. You know what I mean? So if we're using it as a stress reliever because we really need it, then we just need to actually start looking at reducing it out. so that if you do have it, when your body is healthy and it's got really good detoxification channels, to be honest, alcohol doesn't have that impact on us. It doesn't have that impact on the liver because we have a really healthy, robust system and it's able to manage it really quickly. If I was to say there's going to be something better than another thing, we like choose red wine. At least get the antioxidants.
What if you combined it with protein? Would that help?
Well, definitely do not drink on an empty stomach. And water. Yes. Yeah. Like if you just remember, like think of alcohol as much like sugar. It robs the body of nutrition. So if you're drinking alcohol, it's going to suppress your immune system. You're going to need to drink more water. You're going to need to get more fiber in to help your liver to detox. And you're going to need to make sure that you're eating good food. So like where I see alcohol can play a benefit, and it's definitely not how we kind of use it, especially in a New Zealand culture, is that if you're sitting down to a really good meal and you're sitting and you're present and you're eating over a period of time and you can enjoy the alcohol with the meal, that's going to be a lot better for your health because you've just changed the whole context and how you're consuming it.
So it's really, alcohol is obviously not, it's like sugar, it's not great for you, but if you're using it as a stress relief, you're probably already suppressing your immune system from where you're at, and that's just going to drive that further.
Yeah. And then, caffeine's probably the moot point for everyone because it's a drug that most of us all consume daily. But again, caffeine stimulates the adrenals to release cortisol. So when the body is releasing cortisol, it's also triggering our hormone response for fight and flight. So that's to fight or to run away from the lion. And when we're in this high alert state, our body is unable to repair, it's unable for maintenance, it's suppressed our immune system because we don't need our immune system when we're fighting for our life or we're running away. So for anyone that has any pro-inflammatory illnesses, we really need to reduce caffeine, and that includes coffee, black tea, green tea, white tea, anything that has caffeine in it. We just need to reduce it back and make sure that you're having it at the first half of your day. So you're not having it in the evenings or the afternoons where it's going to disrupt sleep.
And what's a pro-inflammatory condition?
So like a pro-inflammatory condition is, I often think of anything like arthritis, joint pain,
inflammatory bowel,
there we go, IBS, ulcerative colitis. Sometimes when you put on the spot, people not even my brain functions.
Rheumatoid arthritis,
fibromyalgia, polymyalgia, anything that you would, like when you think about it, anything that you get prescribed a corticosteroid to control your symptoms. So psoriasis, eczema, asthma, anything hay fever again. So you can see it's a whole host. Anything that needs to be controlled by a steroid means that your body is no longer making sufficient requirements. So therefore, you need to look to reduce caffeine that directly stimulates your adrenals from your body.
So if you're in a pro-inflammatory state, and the indications are that you have one of those symptoms is one of the indicators, if you have caffeine, that's going to push you further into that state and not only suppress your immune system, but potentially make that condition worse too.
Yeah, so one thing I do see people do with coffee intake though to help kind of suppress that cortisol release is to consume it with a fat. So a lot of people try to consume their caffeine with like a cream or a butter just to kind of attenuate that cortisol release.
Also, same as sugar, if you have your caffeine with fat, it will decrease how quickly it all goes into your system.
So, like if you have a cup of green tea, I feel like I'm really picking on nuts, but they're just so accessible, like a handful of Brazil nuts for the selenium. And they come high in fat. If you're having, again, caffeine at the first half of your day, I'm assuming you're also having breakfast. So caffeine on an empty stomach, much like alcohol, is a no-go. You know, you need to not get up and have caffeine straight away. It's just a straight hit to the adrenals. If there was an order, you'd get up, you'd have some water, you'd have a breakfast that has a good portion of protein in it, and then you could have that caffeine. And you really need to keep it to kind of one unit a day.
And how about the bullet coffees that you put ghee or coconut oil in?
Yep, so that's, that's the same. So that's adding the fat. I just couldn't think of that at the time. So ghee, coconut oil.
What about the decaffeinated coffees? Like now there's ones I've learned recently about that get decaffeinated through a water process, so it doesn't add chemicals.
So the Swiss water process, you can't ever get rid of all of caffeine. So yes, it reduces the caffeine load, but it's still caffeine. It's still got the same amount of caffeine as a green tea.
Okay, so it's like having a low alcohol drink. You're still having a little bit, but it's just not as much.
Yeah, so it's a great way to wean you off coffee, because if anyone stopped coffee, remember, it is a drug. It does sit on our receptor sites in the brain. So when you stop having it, you get withdrawals.
Yes.
So like decaf can be a great way to reduce yourself off.
And so with nuts, there's obviously lots of people say that you should only eat nuts that are soaked to avoid the phytonutrients. So can you snack on roasted nuts?
You can snack on roasted nuts. Yeah.
So does that mean you shouldn't eat raw nuts? So they should be...
I'm going to have a sip of water.
I feel like I need to get my water too. I'm feeling like
let me just hydrate people. I used to sit on a really stance fence around nuts, to be honest, in which I was like, it needs to be soaked. If you don't soak them, you're getting a lot of anti-nutrients. I've kind of come around in the last year after doing a little bit of upskilling and relearning, because that's what you do in this business. If you're not learning, you're dead. And like when you focus on having a healthy body, a healthy gut, and a healthy liver, you can actually, like a little bit of anti-nutrients, so phytic acid from nuts are actually just child's play for the liver, and not to worry about it. If you're worried about nutrient uptake, worry about your liver health.
So you're saying that the roasted nuts, do they have to be soaked first and then roasted?
No, they can just be roasted.
Roasted nuts have less phytonutrients in them than raw nuts?
No, not necessarily, because raw nuts are still going to have higher phytic acid, which can bind to minerals in the gut, while roasted nuts actually reduce the phytic acid.
So really, we just don't stress too much.
So really, like that's what I'm saying. Like I've come full circle on this. Don't stress about nuts.
Okay. Focus more on drinking enough water, reducing our sugar and our caffeine. That's going to make a bigger impact on our immune system.
Yeah.
I like it. All right. Any other questions about that bit, or what? Anything else we can do to help with our immune systems?
Okay. So like, I just need to reset because I just said so like wasn't not okay. Soluble fiber. So we often talk about insoluble fiber, and if anyone has read the blog article that came out from ChiroBalance this week, I really wanted to use it as a point to kind of educate people on soluble fiber and its benefits and why you want it in your diet every day. So like I can't stop saying it now. In the blue zones of the world where people live the longest, it has been shown that they eat around 1 cup of beans and legumes daily in their diet. So when we think about our day, if you just think about, hey, what did I have for breakfast, lunch, or dinner? Did any of that contain bean or legumes? So for a lot of people who maybe won't be eating a vegan or vegetarian diet, they might not have any beans or legumes in their diet apart from maybe a bit of hummus. Okay, so It's not enough. So soluble fiber, the reason why I want to talk about it for our immunity is because our immune system is situated around our gut. So anything that helps our gut health helps our immune system. So soluble fiber, it dissolves in water. So when it dissolves, it creates a gel-like substance. So we often get a lot of insoluble fiber from our food. So insoluble fiber attracts water into the bowels to give us nice, easy bowel movements, but soluble fiber dissolves in water to create a gel. So this gel can then be fermented by gut bacteria. It helps to lower our cholesterol. So if we have high LDL, it helps to lower that. It also helps to lower glucose level. And also modulates our intrahepatic circulation. So that is probably a really big key, because that circulation system,
what is your intrahepatic circulation system?
So that circulation system is a system that recycles your bile that is released from your liver back to your liver. Now, where the key bit here is that when you detox, your fat-soluble toxins that can't be excreted out through your kidneys go out through your bile, into your digestive tract, and out through pooing, essentially, in your feces. Okay, so the intrahepatic circulation system is that bile getting to the end of the small intestines, and if there wasn't enough soluble fiber in that meal, it then gets reabsorbed. So that bile that's getting reabsorbed is also bringing back to the liver all the toxins that it just tried to get out. So if you want a strong immune system, an immune system needs to have those toxins removed from the body. Okay, so it seems almost too simple in a way, but sometimes nutrition can be that simple. But it takes practice, because it means sometimes we have to challenge how we're eating. Sometimes we have to plan what we're eating to be able to get those soluble fibers in there, because again, insoluble fiber, super easy. Eat fruit and vegetables. Soluble fiber, you really get them from beans, legumes, and lentils. Then they're not high enough. You might think, oh, but my porridge turns into a gel when I add water. Not enough. But, porridge is still good. If you needed a level to start at, porridge is going to be a first good step. It also comes with beta-glucans, which have shown to, increase the number of cells that destroy viruses and tumors. It's got immune modulating nutrients like selenium, zinc, and iron. So if you, needed to start somewhere and you weren't quite at the level of beans, cool. Maybe you could start with oats. If you want to go to that next level, maybe you use steel cut oats. If you can't tolerate oats because you don't have gluten in the diet, you could also incorporate other whole grains that also create that gel-like substance when you add with water and kind of turn into a porridge. So quinoa, buckwheat, that could be a place to start. Again, it doesn't have enough soluble fiber, and those foods definitely don't come with enough protein. So you do need to add protein to those meals. But it's a place to start. Brown rice, yep, that's another good example. When you agitate that with water, you get a porridge.
What about chia seeds?
Chia seeds, another good one. They don't have as much soluble fiber though.
So the best ones are all the beans and the lentils, and they also at the top, and then the next layer down would be buckwheat and quinoa and rolled oats and chia seeds.
Yep. And when I say like 1 cup a day, like you really do need half a cup of beans and legumes at 2 meals as a minimum to just be healthy. So if someone was concerned for weight loss, they could replace, their carbohydrate portion for the beans and legumes. I just say to people, actually, you'll find your natural balance of other carbohydrates in your meal when you incorporate beans and legumes, because they're so filling, because they have so much fiber. It's so hard to overeat when you feel so full. Or you do overeat and you self-regulate because you're like, that feels horrible.
Is there any particular lentils that are the healthiest?
Black beans. And for those that know me, I sing black bean praise. You look at them, they're the easiest to digest. They create the least amount of gastrointestinal disturbances, so people don't generally complain of having a lot of gas with them or a lot of bloating. They also have that rich color, so again, high in phytonutrients, super astringent, so it means they help to pull on that bowel wall. So if you've got any old compacted fecal matter along that colon that needs to be excreted out of the body, it's going to help. It's going to help pull that out. Okay. So again, anyone who's struggling with constipation, black beans are a real bowel mover, and they're also the highest in soluble fiber, which makes sense because, the more soluble fiber, the more water gel-like substance they're going to create.
Is there any difference between the different lentils, like red lentils, brown lentils, green lentils, in terms of which are the healthiest?
I would say you have to go with the one you like the most. But if I had to kind of tout a favorite, would be red lentils or like dal, because again, they have that higher soluble fiber. So if you think about it, when you're cooking the bean, the harder it is to get it to go to soft, the more insoluble fiber it has. The easier it is to get soft, the more soluble fiber it has. But once you embark on the bean life, I highly recommend a pressure cooker, because then you can take beans that you might have forgotten to soak and have them cooked until soft in 8 minutes. It's a game changer.
And how about good recipes, bean legume recipes, or recommend somewhere to look for recipes for that?
I use Google.
How do you spell that?
I don't know if that is a recommended source, but to be honest, to start, I say to people, just start adding half a cup to your meal. You know what I mean? Because beans don't really have a lot of flavor. So if you can just add in half a cup, if you've got a salad on your plate, add in half a cup. If you're making any soups, add in some different ones. Sometimes I like to add in, this week I added in pinto beans and red lentils. Because
combine, like, is it even better? Like
that's what I was going to say. That's even better. When you're looking at it, like all the beans are going to have like the main nutrients they provide, but they're always going to have deficiencies in other things. So starting to combine your beans that's when you start supercharging it. So I'm a geek like that. I like to see, what nutrition is in this bean? Where can I couple it with another bean to get the other things that I'm missing? The one bean that I say people avoid, if you've got any gastrointestinal problems or you just don't have good gut health, just don't go near kidney beans. That's in chili beans. It's a no-go. I recently had someone that I recommended, incorporating beans in my diet, and they were like, I'm going to go bold or go home, and they were like, I'm having 1 cup of kidney beans a day, and they were just in a world of pain. And I was like, I think I even wrote down black beans. And I looked back at my notes and I was like, it says black beans. So, I felt like I needed to say it in case someone was, often we just think of the beans that we see most often in our head, and you hear me say black beans, but you go away and you buy kidney beans, or, a mixed bean mix. Because that's great, they're in a can, they're ready to go. You probably don't want to start there. Just start with one bean at a time. It takes a while for your beneficial bacteria to get used to new introduction of foods. as well. If you even know, like if you go eat something that you don't usually eat, often it can upset your digestion. So just start with one thing, see how you go, add in another thing. But if you wanted to have, you know, a couple of outstanding options, I would recommend black beans, chickpeas, and red lentils.
So hummus is a good option to have with meals too then?
Hummus is a great option. If you think you've already got beans in your meal and then you add a dollop of hummus on top, like you're cooking with gas, man. And that was a pun.
Yeah, because how about a lot of people complain that obviously they get a lot of gas when they eat beans. What would you say about that?
So that's where I'd say, like, reduce it back, start with one at a meal and increase your water. So for a lot of time, it's going to take a while for your beneficial bacteria to balance, okay? But the problem is that well, it's not a problem, but when you introduce those beneficial beans, what's happening is that they help to create a short-chain fatty acid called butyric acid. And butyric acid is like a fuel for your gut. So it's going to help tidy up your gut health. If there's bacteria that shouldn't be there that need to die off, it's going to die off. Okay, so the best way to deal with that, to deal with bloating and to deal with gas, is to increase your water. And also do something that I never tell people to do, but I'd highly recommend it. If you have any of those symptoms, sip on warm water the whole time you're eating that meal.
And eventually, do people find that their gas reduces once their body gets used to it?
Yeah. And you can also do things like chewing on fennel seeds or having a peppermint tea. Is cold water bad for you? Yes.
But it's still better than caffeine or...
It's still better than caffeine, sure. But it was a straight question. I thought I'd give it a straight answer. So, you know, is it bad for you? It's not great for you. The body has to heat that up before it can process it. Again, like pro tip, drink all your water warm if you want to be super hydrated. But if you're drinking water to cool down, it plays a part as well.
So is there an ideal gap that you would say between your dinner and breakfast the next day? Melanie's got a few things probably to say about this.
I noted the time. So I'll just say that ideally you would like to have at least an 8-hour window, you know, building towards 12 hours. But if you are someone who works really long hours or is under a lot of stress, then having a late dinner or having a snack later on in the night is going to be more beneficial for your health than trying to starve yourself through an eating window. Because if the body does get stressed, then you just remember you are releasing cortisol and adrenaline, which are all things that are going to lower your immunity.
So you're saying that if you're in a pretty good state, having a nice big break between your dinner and your breakfast, like 12 to 14 hours, is awesome.
Great.
But if you're already in a stress state, then maybe having a protein snack, would you say?
Yep.
Or what you would recommend?
Well, I would say, like, actually, I wouldn't say protein. I was saying if that you're needing a snack later on at night, you want it to be with carbs and fat. And the reason for that is carbohydrates is going to help make your happy hormones to help you sleep really deeply. And the fat there is we need for those hormone synthesis. And again, it's going to slow down that release of carbohydrate. So like a banana smothered in peanut butter.
So how about breakfast? Would you recommend breakfast?
So breakfast is a bone of contention for a lot of people, and I see everywhere where people say, oh, I never liked eating breakfast and now I don't and it's changed my life. Okay, if you have no health problems and you are super fit and you're living your best life, then go ahead and skip breakfast. If you have any health concerns or you're wanting to have the best health you can have, then breakfast is really essential, because otherwise you're just stressing the body. So when I was saying before about with blood sugar levels being unstable and forcing the liver to go through gluconeogenesis, which is what happens if you're up and you're in the daytime and you're pushing the body to do work because you're fasting until lunch. You might feel great because you're essentially being flooded with cortisol and adrenaline because your body's having to trigger creating glucose from the liver. And that will deplete in time. So if you want to look at intermittent fasting, then and you want to get the benefits of intermittent fasting, do it once or twice a week. Don't do that stress every day on the body. And if you wanted to stretch out that fasting window, do it at the end of the day when you're meant to be calming down and relaxing. Have a big meal at 4:00 and then, fast until the morning.
And do you have any good breakfast ideas? Like, obviously, lots of people have things like cereal or Wheat Bix for breakfast.
So like with the breakfast front, it really comes down to, like some people just really like the cereal breakfast. It's what their comfort level is. In that instance, then you need to look at the sugar content. So like, for example, Wheat Bix actually has really low sugar. So, if that's where you're starting and you feel comfortable, cool. But it's just really a low sugar kind of cardboard meal. It doesn't really have a lot of nutrition in it. So if you're having it, you need to add nutrition to that meal. One, you need to add protein. Doesn't have adding milk to that isn't enough protein, right? Milk's not going to add enough protein. So you need protein with that. You might want to add in some soluble fiber. So you might want to add in some fruit. You might want to add in some yogurt. And then really you're just like, well, I've got fruit, I've got yogurt, I've added in chia seeds, I've added in some flax seeds. I can actually take the Wheat Bix out altogether. You know what I mean?
Maybe replace them with some beans.
Yeah. And, eggs, nothing like a good omelette with some black beans in it in the morning.
So it sounds like it's another example of crowding out, that it's not necessarily that the Wheat Bix are the problem, but the Wheat Bix just don't actually have many nutrients in the middle. So if you still want to have the Wheat Bix, that's fine, as long as you add all the other.
Just add other things to it. It's kind of ironic when Wheat Bix are in a brick shape because it's like you're just trying to building onto that meal to crowd out. But I like, in all honesty, like Wheat Bix, if you were eating Wheat Bix, and you compare that to other cereals in the supermarket, cereals in the supermarket are horrendous. Most of them, I just looked a couple of weeks ago out of curiosity because we don't buy cereal, but I thought, I'll have a look. Most of them have more than, 10 grams of sugar per serving. And remember, the serving size is so small. A serving size is like a third of a cup. Most people are putting in, half a cup or a cup into their bowl. So really they're getting, 20 grams of sugar and you only need to have 25 grams a day.
What about avocado? Would that be a good breakfast option?
Great breakfast option. You need protein with that. So like if you're having that on like a high fiber toast, like a Bergen or a Vogel's, you need to add a protein.
So avocado itself isn't enough protein. That's just a good fat and nutrient.
Just a good fat, good fiber.
Yeah.
But you can see how like you can actually take some of these foods and where you might like eat a whole avocado, all of a sudden you're like, I'm having a quarter of an avocado because I'm also trying to have some fiber and I like my avocado on toast. And then Melanie said I also needed protein. So now I'm having a boiled egg. And she told me I had to incorporate some beans and legumes in this. And I don't feel comfortable having a side of beans. So I've got to put hummus on top of this. And she told me I needed to have, look to have vegetables at all my meals. So I'm going to chuck in some sprouts. I'm also wanting to supercharge my immune system. So I might put in some sauerkraut. So you start actually building these meals and you start thinking that sometimes the foods that you eat a lot of, you start eating a lot less of. And that'd probably be the biggest thing because a lot of people say to me, food's expensive. And I'm like, well, actually, once you start building your plate, you can get a bit more variety and actually lower your food costs across the board.
And what about dark chocolate after tea? After dinner, I guess that means, not after a cup of tea.
It's a habit. We need to crowd it out.
So maybe just because
the dark chocolate itself has both sugar and caffeine. So the dark chocolate really just needs to be at another time of the day.
So dark chocolate in the first half of the day, just like all other caffeine, would be more ideal.
Yep.
If you are going to have it at night, have it with some fat, like some nuts or something, or just...
No, it got moved. It got moved.
It got moved.
The seminar is on boosting the immune system. At some point, I gotta put a line in the sand. The dark chocolate got moved to the first half of the day. If you have it in the evening, that is to your own sleep detriment. And I didn't even get to sleep because we're at 8:30. And I still had stress to cover, reducing stress, getting exercise, getting good quality sleep, brushing your teeth. I just really want to get that one in really, really quickly, because the beneficial bacteria in your mouth is the beneficial bacteria in your gut. So if you are getting fillings or you've got gum disease, you need to get your gum health improved so that you can have good gut health and therefore good immunity. So if you only take away a couple of things, so like drink your water, have protein at your meals, reduce sugar, caffeine, and alcohol. So we'll just put that in one: reduce sugar, caffeine, and alcohol. Add half a cup, start with half a cup of beans once a day into your diet, and then brush your teeth and floss. Like, you're doing great.
Wow.
Because you've reduced your sugar, so you're already not getting as many fillings, so your dentist is loving you. You're not having sugary food, so your dentist is loving you because you're drinking water. You're getting in protein, and you're getting in beans, and they've got lots of minerals.
And you're reducing all your pro-inflammatory stuff, so your chiropractor is loving you too.
Yeah.
And you're drinking your water, which is helping all your joints move better. Well, all this money that you guys are going to be saving from... Awesome. Thank you so much, Melanie, for sharing all that with me tonight. Is there any other questions that anybody has that they want to unmute themselves and ask, or pop on the chat while you guys are thinking about that? So Melanie is actually getting married in a month.
Yes, 30 days.
So yeah, we're very excited for her, and we kind of like nailed her down to this date tonight, so that it was before she gets into all her wedding prep. So and then she's going on a honeymoon, which I assume is in New Zealand and not Auckland. So if anyone's interested in having a follow-up consult with Melanie, what she generally does is the first consult's about 90 minutes. She's tried to do it in 60, but she has so much to share with you that the couple of you on here who have had consults with her know that it never is 60. So 90 minutes. And what she's doing for everyone on the webinar and stuff is that it's $100 for that first session, which is awesome. And she's got dates available from November 8th. So it's about a month away. So you've got a bit of time to boost your water up and your protein and your beans and stuff and see how that goes with you. And she does them at our Chiropractic Balance in Wellington on Wednesday and Thursday evenings, as well as she can just do them over like a call like this as well, for those people who those days or times don't suit, or location. Otherwise, obviously, chat to me, chat to your chiropractor at your appointments. We've got lots of what Melanie talked about tonight have been on our blog articles for the last 4 weeks, which you may have got emails about, or they're all on our website. So I think that might be all of our questions tonight. I've learned a lot myself as well. And you find these things, like I didn't even realize that I would be learning things tonight, but it's not even just learning it. Lots of the stuff you already knew or kind of knew. It's just to actually inspire you to do it. So I love talking to Melanie because she just always inspires me to do the things that I know I should be doing anyway, and then she adds a few more things that I didn't know would be good for me. And beans is definitely one that I've been working on lately as well. So thank you, everybody. You guys will get a copy of this recording as well. So if there's anything that you want to go back and listen to and learn about your intrahepatic circulation and how your beans might help with that, you can go back and listen to that. Thank you, Melanie. And
thank you all
on there to say good luck for your wedding.
Thank you. No, thank you all for coming. Thanks for all your questions. as Ros said, like I also learn a lot from your questions. So, you know, if you do have questions, it's always important to put them out there to anyone that you're working with, because sometimes we don't often know the answer, but when we go and find it, we learn something new too.
And I'll share Melanie's email address as well. So she's the best person just to get in touch with directly if you have any more questions or you want to book a consult with her. Cool, guys. Good looking after those immune systems. And go have a drink of water and no dark chocolate now, please, before bed. We've moved that.
Thank you.
See you guys.
Cheers. Bye. See you, Tony. Denise. Susan.